Let me ask you something. Have you ever believed something not because you chose it, but because the world around you made it feel normal? Maybe it was an opinion everyone repeated until you just nodded along. Maybe it was a trend you followed because that's just what people do. Maybe it was a belief you absorbed like background noise without ever asking, do I actually believe this? Or do I just fear being the odd one out? Every society builds invisible boundaries around thought, walls you can't see, rules no one writes down, lines you don't cross, not because they're illegal, but because they're unthinkable. And here's the dangerous part. Most people never realise these boundaries were created on purpose. They weren't born with them. They inherited them. They were engineered, constructed, slowly shifted inch by inch while the population wasn't paying attention. This invisible perimeter has a name, the Overton Window. And by the end of this video, you'll see how your beliefs, your opinions, and even what you label common sense may have been shaped without your permission. You'll understand how narratives are built, how culture is guided, how your mind is influenced, and how you can reclaim sovereignty over your thoughts. Because you cannot escape a cage if you don't know you are in one. So imagine entering an art gallery. White walls, silent, empty, nothing to look at. Then a curator walks in and hangs a single painting. Suddenly, every visitor turns towards that painting. They debate it, analyse it, mock it, praise it. Before it was placed on the wall, nobody cared about it. But now it becomes the conversation. It becomes the thing everyone has an opinion on. This is how public opinion works. Ideas don't just emerge. They don't magically appear in society. They are chosen, placed, displayed. And the Overton Window is the frame that tells society these ideas are respectable, these ideas are dangerous, these ideas aren't to be discussed. And the most important part is the frame moves. Not because people consciously move it, but because everything around them, the news, the culture, the influences, the trends, nudges it little by little. The question you must always ask is, who's pushing the frame? So in the 1990s, policy analyst Joseph Overton introduced a powerful idea. All social and political ideas exist on a spectrum. Only a narrow slice of that spectrum is considered acceptable at any given moment. The spectrum looks like this. The unthinkable, only a lunatic would say that. The radical, that's extreme. The acceptable, we can debate it. The sensible, actually that makes sense. The popular, everyone agrees. And then policy, it's official. The Overton Window sits in the middle, the zone where ideas are safe to publicly discuss. So some key ideas are a spectrum of ideas. Every belief system exists somewhere on that spectrum. Your reaction to an idea is heavily influenced by where society places it. Politically acceptable. Only ideas in the window can be mentioned by public figures without backlash. A shifting window. Over time, society shifts the window, not by accident but by influence. As Joseph Lehman once said, politicians don't move the window, they detect where it is and rush to stand inside it. The real window movers are the activists, the media, celebrities, cultural movements, crisis events, art, conversation. Society is a tug of war of ideas. Whoever pulls hardest gets to decide what becomes normal. So take history. Women's voting was at first unthinkable, then radical, then acceptable, then normal, and now classed as essential. Abolishing slavery, once considered absurd, now considered the bare minimum of morality. cannabis legalization, same-sex marriages, climate policy. These ideas evolved through the same pipeline. Mocked, dismissed, debated, normalized, defended, celebrated, institutionalized. But how does this shift happen? Through, as we said, persistent activism, media framing, repetition, cultural pressure, crisis-driven emotions, and slowly changing values over generations. It's like heating water. You start at room temperature, but eventually the whole pot begins to boil. Quietly, gradually, then suddenly. Society doesn't leap, it drifts, it slides, it creeps, until one day you wake up and the thing you once called crazy is now common sense. Now let's get personal. Your mind doesn't choose beliefs purely through logic. It chooses beliefs through survival. You have normative conformity, where you adopt views that help you fit in with your tribe. You have social safety. You avoid beliefs that could get you attacked or isolated. The mere exposure effect. The more you hear something, even if it's nonsense, the more acceptable it feels. The radical flank effect. When someone presents an extreme idea, a moderate idea suddenly feels reasonable. For example, if we ban all fossil fuels tomorrow, makes a gradual transition to green energy sound safe, even if the second option once seemed radical. This is how your opinions are engineered, not through force, but through psychological shaping. If society's beliefs are a river, the media places the rocks that redirect the flow. Media decides what becomes urgent, which voices are amplified, what stories dominate the week, what's repeated until it becomes truth-like, what becomes normal, what becomes shameful, and what's completely ignored. The media is the gallery curator. They choose which paintings hang on the wall. Look at movements that have happened. Me Too, Black Lives Matter, etc., etc. These movements took topics that were once whispered and pulled them into centre stage. They shifted the Overton window in real time. This isn't to say it's good or bad. It's simply how influence works. Whatever you repeat becomes reality. Ideas that were once absurd are now ordinary. And here are some examples. AI merging with humans. Neural implants, AI companionship. The sci-fi turning to tech conference keynote. Gender fluidity, once taboo, is now kind of mainstream and discussed in policy. Being constantly tracked was once seen as impossible. Now it's cameras, phones, browsing data. Once dystopian, now shrugged off. Working full-time but still being poor. Once a national crisis, now just background noise. Extremely high taxes. What used to spark riots now barely sparks debate. And then mass illegal immigration. Once unthinkable, now part of weekly political discourse. Whether you agree with any of these being relevant or not is pointless. The actual point is, they moved along the spectrum. They weren't always normal, and now they were made normal. And here's where it hits you directly. There are beliefs inside your mind right now that you never chose. You inherited them. Think about it. You ask yourself, what beliefs have I accepted because everyone else does? Which opinions do I defend without understanding them? Which ideas instantly trigger me and why? Who benefits from me thinking this way? You've been conditioned by school, by culture, media, friends, family, religion, advertising, politics, and the fears you don't speak about. You didn't choose the water you were swimming in, but now you can learn to step out of the tank. Awareness is emancipation. So you can reclaim your mind. The first way is by questioning what's normal. Whenever you hear that's just how it is, ask, according to who? Scan the edges. When an idea triggers an emotional reaction, pause. That reaction reveals a boundary you didn't create. And then expose yourself to different worlds. Travel, read widely, speak with people who contradict you, study history, challenge your bias, break your algorithmic bubble. Because if you don't choose your inputs, someone else already has. The Overton window is the silent architect of belief. It decides what is respectable, what is forbidden, what is mocked, what is praised, what you're allowed to say, and what you're trained to avoid. Most people never see the window. They live inside it like fish in water, never questioning the liquid around them. But the moment you become aware of the frame, the moment you stop assuming normal is natural, that's when you begin to think independently. Freedom begins when you stop asking, what does society accept? And start asking, what do I truly believe? That's how you reclaim your mind. That's how you build a life on your own terms. And that is the real shift. This episode is sponsored by Strong Coffee Company. Protein-packed coffee for energy and clarity. Use code Vancrux1 for 20% off at strongcoffeecompany.com. And More Labs, clinically proven hydration and recovery drinks. Use code Vancrux1 for 25% off at morelabs.com. And finally, liquor gummies, electrolytes and vitamins for hangover prevention. Use code Vancrux1 for 20% off at liquor.com. That's liquure.com.